FaZe Fans Come Here, fresh after Cluj-Napoca. We have launders on. Obviously, someone with zero disagreements about our MVP decisions. Harry, he loves every player that you've ever nominated, and couldn't agree more, right, launders?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why this podcast is taking place, so we can really get into the weeds about this. But I thought this was about FaZe.
It is, of course it is.
Okay.
It's always a good chance to, get a little on Harry's nerves at the start, because everyone just loves the kind of decisions that he makes. So yeah, there's no doubt.
Sometimes you forget that someone actually has to make that decision when it just comes out on the brand account. But I think the only thing that felt weird about this one is that, like, in the past, the rating discrepancy, whether it was like twist or simple, it always felt more justified because there was so much dominance. And then obviously this isn't a finals MVP, but the finals is still the most important game of the run. And so it just felt a little bit different this time, especially because when I saw Exertion versus Nico in these rounds in the finals, that was a big difference in who won. So in the past, I've almost always sided with Simple's, what was it, Star Ladder or Twist or whatever it was, like the best player on the losing team, if they were that good, yeah. But this one just felt a little different.
What if I told you that on like a very alpha version of Rating 3.0, Exertion was 4th on Mouse for the tournament?
Oof.
Including the finals?
Yep, including finals. But this is the thing, this is like, it's why it was so hard for us, is because basically the new data we got made it harder. Mm-hmm. And then Striker, because obviously he just went on holiday last week. So it was just me and Peter, just like, well, this is impossible because, like, normally there's some sort of tiebreaker we can go to, and often it is the final, right? But because Nico was so good in the first 2 playoff series, like, there was just a massive gap there. And Mao's, like, people think that we're doing this because we hate on Mao's, but it's like, there's a reason they keep not getting MVPs when they win. It's because, like, all 4 of them just take turns every time and just can't quite split the credit in the way that maybe you want to, if you want to get an MVP, right? Because, like, Nico on Falcons is different to anyone on Mao's in terms of responsibility and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, we went either way. There was like, because I think poor old like Bercho and Jean, the people that were at the event, were just kind of waiting on stage for like, who's MVP. It was like the longest we've made them wait. They had to get Nico at the hotel because we took so long. Like, it was super, super hard. Like, this is one of those where if someone's going to say Exertion, like, honestly, fine. Like, in the top 20, it's going to be the same thing, basically, because it was so close and so difficult. But
so you're saying he was 4th, he was first on Mouse then?
Torzy. I mean, it's busted. I didn't mention that it's completely busted. And it just overrates clutches way too much. But yeah, Torzy basically, because he won like 5 clutches in playoffs, basically. They was just like, yep, he's the best player of all time. Which is kind of because it's kind of like maybe 50% of it is like Leafy rating type vibe, where it's all about the impact of each kill. And someone like Exertion who dies a lot. And we'll get to some of that with people like EliGE today as well, is how to correctly rate someone who is very high output but has quite high like cost of output.
Let's get back on track here, Harry, because obviously I would say let's get back on track to talk about FaZe, but first you have to talk about whatever this is and explain to the people.
This is an archaic meme. It's probably from before your country was even founded, happens. But there's a guy in Richmond Park in
India,
London, and
Harry.
well, that's different. It's more, I'm not getting involved in that with where I'm from. It's just never going to end well for us. But anyway, Richmond Park, it's lovely. There was this lovely dog, right? And its owner lost his dog, and he just shouted Fenton again and again for like 30 seconds. The dog just ran away. It was just chasing deer. It just wanted fights. It just wanted to scrap all these deer, right? And that's basically EliGE's first 2 months on FaZe, because he's still in this complexity mindset of, if a 5v4 is not good enough, I need 5v3, I need 5v2. So when he kills one deer, he wants another deer. He's just gonna keep fighting deer. And Carragher's like, Frozen sat next to you. Relax. Like, please stop pushing hard on Duke, please. So that's where this came from. It's not my best work, I think it's fair to say, but If you've
the
seen the
analogy
video,
is great. So
He's
all
gonna.
five
He's just
people
gonna
who've seen
keep
the video
fighting deer is a
from
great
2010
sentence to start the show.
sentence.
the
yeah,
analogy is
phrase.
excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're back to it. It's roll cell time. And I think this is an interesting place to start, just because, I've heard you say on cast the same thing I said in an article. And I think, it's because it's obvious to everyone except FaZe, I think, which is that I don't know why they've done Rain as the anchor instead of making Frozen play the same roles as basically every other Star Lurker does these days, which is Rops' old anchor roles. So I kind of want you to expand a bit on. So what do you think about the kind of the Frozen or Rain anchoring kind of debate that people are having?
I've got a few different views here. So I think, first of all, it's extremely easy to play StarCraft and be like, obviously Frozen, if you played these small sites and anchored, he'd probably be the best at it on the team. I feel like that couldn't be more obvious. But also, if you're, on a team, you've developed like these spots to a certain level, plus your star power potential, Kerrigan doesn't want to interrupt it as much. And I think there's also the dynamic of Rain used to be an anchor. He really believes he can be an anchor. I think he can be the best anchor ever. So I think a lot gets lost in sort of I think there's just a lot of, what's the word? Like distortion between, this is clearly the best idea and like how many little things personality wise, I want to keep my spots. Rain says I'm up for it. And so he starts playing those spots. But right now what we're seeing is like, first I just want to shout out Rops, because I knew Rops is so important, but when I watch Anubis and I see like, Kerrigan trying to play with Broky on A site, I just really, this just the chasm that Rops has left on this team now on CT sides is really apparent. He could play that site by himself. He could take baskets by himself. He knew when to totally flank by himself. And now I think everyone else is realizing how difficult that job is, whether it's, even the synergy between like Kerrigan trying to help Broky trying to help Kerrigan isn't there. Kerrigan trying to play it by himself. His aim just isn't good enough. And then the other part of this is there's also some unnecessary switches, like Rain switching with Kerrigan on Ancient. And I get having Kerrigan, IGL, info position in cave, but Rain's kind of historically been a slow learner. And I think that has an extremely high cap when it comes to his skill in certain spots, outside on Nuke, in cave on Ancient, but it wasn't always extremely methodical. It wasn't always like 10 different spams and a million timings. It took a long time for him to get there, I think. Like I made a video a long time ago calling for his head. Sorry, I'm going on like 10 different tangents here. I made a video calling for his head back in like 2020. Things went online. I regretted making that video, but I compared him directly to Flamesy playing upper on T side, like ladder, like holding ladder on T side on train. And I compared how Flamesy did an amazing job with spams, making noise, putting pressure, not fully committing, but always kind of having some presence. And Rain just sort of hung out and like waited around and everything like that. And I think there's a huge contrast between this, older player, slower moving, not coming up with new ideas, not always doing things, and then Flamesy. And then I think that was the case for Rain. And then something I think changed for him. And now he's like the de facto. You want to learn a cave lineup on Ancient, you watch a Rain demo. You want to know the timing, you watch a Rain demo. You watch him up ranker on B on Dust 2. He's like the only guy right now who like spams through that smoke and everything. So I think that now when I watch him on Ancient playing on Banana, sometimes he just dies. Sometimes he just stands in one angle he thinks is good and just dies. And I think his lack of mobility in those spots and like the fact that he hasn't learned everything about that particular position and like the perfect angles to play is costing FaZe some rounds right now. Maybe it works out in the end, but yeah, I think this is a spot that in the short term, definitely Frozen. Well, this is, Frozen playing the other side on the map, but anyways, I think there's a few different angles basically that we can, explain why FaZe wanted to set it up like this.
And you can see that it's still in progress, right? Because, like you said, the Carrigan and Anubis one, they think they changed that already, right? I think Rain's playing A now, so it's, I think a lot of it is, okay, Frozen is our best player last year, pretty much, and you want to keep him comfortable, and I think that's a valid approach to have, and I think it is probably down in the case where in the meeting, Rain is just that, he's that soldier, he's Carrigan soldier, and he just was up for it, and Frozen maybe wasn't, because you want to be in rotate roles if you're someone like Frozen because you're very good at them, and I get that. And you can't really play StarCraft with it. I think you're right about that, and I think there's a reason they've gone the way they've gone. But I do like that they've made EliGE comfortable. So like, it's very sad when you watch Nuke and Rain's not playing outside, for sure. Like that's just something that is going to be sad for everyone. But if you're going to sign EliGE, you have to play EliGE in EliGE's spots. I think you're not going to get the EliGE you signed unless you do that. I think Nuke was really struggling in that Doors position that we had him in. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing. And I think it's why I was a bit nervous about the move is the CT sides, because I think T side, it just seems to work. But we can come back to the CT side topic. Let's look at T side, Nohte. Thank you. So yeah, this is T side, and I think it's as we expected. It's EliGE space taking, great, works. Frozen lurking, great, works. And then Rain is this kind of flex player. I think that's something that he's done before. He's very good at it. And it's this kind of experienced role that I think him and Hunter are two of the, like I always compare them, even when they were playing different roles, I always compared them because like the experience they bring and like the ability in mid rounds to make the right move, right? That you get from a 28-year-old, you might not get from, a 20-year-old, right? And I think that's still his role on the team and just in different places. And I think I'm enjoying their T sides more on most maps. And I think Rain is adapting to lurking better than he's adapting to anchoring so far for me.
I think their T sides still have a little bit of the classic like FaZe chaos thrown into it, whereas you don't really see it as much on the CT side right now. It seems like they're not really able to thrive in that kind of chaos as they used to, and that's very likely linked to that role mismatch as well. Kerrigan mentioned in the interview after they were eliminated that they aren't really going to make like significant changes to any of their roles right now. They still feel like they haven't really had enough time to, really make adjustments after the events they've played. So I don't know. I feel like as you like look at the composition of the team between the T side and CT side, it just doesn't seem like they're playing the same game, like the same style that they used to, at least.
Yeah,
I
think you go.
I was just going to say that, yeah, T sides they're really appealing because I'd say like the last time they had a player as good as EliGE as an aggressive T side player was back when Nico was on the team or back when Rain was the best player on FaZe consistently. And so I think EliGE adds that, and everyone's hypothesis for what would go wrong on CT side, I think, is coming true in some sense. We just don't know if it'll work out eventually. My one trepidation is believing in it outright because, I don't know, Kerrigan's mentioned that the ROPS Frozen sort of role clash, rumors were a little bit overblown, but there was something wrong there, I think. And I don't know if that ever really got figured out. So I'm not sure if there was any conclusion to that in terms of what, if there's any specific reason that ROPS isn't on the team anymore that has to do with that, or if that was true at all. But I definitely believe that to be true. There was some issue.
The thing with me is I see them as, I think they want to play in the same positions, but in very different ways. Like I see Frozen's the type of guy who basically wants to be the trade fragger, whereas ROPS is very happy on his own. And I guess that's maybe just a different type of lurker. And I don't know what's better for a team. Like if you're building from scratch, I don't know what you want. I guess you kind of want one of each. And that's probably why they thought it would work out, because, but there's so many of these teams. I think the one thing I would say on having those two in the same team, even if they think it's overplayed or something, like most teams now have their lurkers entry like a ridiculous amount. Like these space takers, they take the space and then their lurkers late round a lot of the time, right? So if you have 2 passive lurkers and your IGL's dead because it's your IGL, like it's gonna happen. And then it's like Frozen, Rops, broky in a 3v3 felt so much worse than with Twist there. Because Twist would just do that dirty work every single time. Twist would be the one. And we know now that's because he wants to be way more aggressive, right? But I think that just really worked. And I never saw Frozen as that guy because I think he's much more comfortable being second in. And that's fine. That's some players, right? But yeah, to skip on a little bit, I think number 1 point, EliGE is as good a fragger as Rops, even if he's completely different. And I think that's just a good starting point. We don't need to linger on this. I think we all know this, but he's doing it. I think this is the more interesting side of it is, and this is complicated. You can bear with me. Audio listeners, I'm sorry. This isn't going to work. Open YouTube. That's not my fault.
Open your eyes.
So this is basically their trading stats. It's like their trading chart, right? And the dots were the faces. This is so bad for audio. I should have thought this through. Anyway,
You can pause the video.
Pause the video on your phone. Anyway, so the dots of the faces are 2025. It's what FaZe are doing right now. And the further right they are, the more entering they're doing, the more their deaths are traded, basically. And the further left, the less entering they're doing. And what we've seen is basically EliGE is entering more than in complexity, because I think because of this, I think people are less happy to entry than, say, Grim was. I think Grim and JT were very happy to do it. Carrigan, the same. Frozen entry is way less than last year in terms of his trading numbers. He's gone all the way to the top left where Rops was. Rain is the really interesting one, I think, is that he has become this kind of, from a statistical side, and I'm not going to pretend I've watched Rain on his own to know what's going on here. He's gone from someone who was traded quite a lot to basically, he doesn't get traded and he doesn't trade either. He's just on his own, it seems like. And of course, anchoring's part of that. But I wondered if you'd spot anything on T sides where he's kind of, is he doing a lot of aggressive lurking on his own? Like, I don't know what's caused this. I just spotted it and I was like, this is not what I expected. I thought Rain would be the classic modern lurker where he's happy to bump side entry. I thought he'd be further right than last year instead of towards the trading end, which is what I found, I guess.
Yeah, I know who Rain voted for. No, I'm just kidding. I think that there is sort of a space vacuum in that sense. With FaZe has always been such a unique team because of their like late round power. With again with Twist on the team, that was the sort of pinnacle of like how smart they could be in late round situations with 3 players alive. But I think with EliGE's propensity, like sometimes you get this. It's like the Akinder effect almost. When he plays with James, he's so far out ahead that like everybody else almost feels the need to like save the round by not being overly aggressive. And I think in your initial analogy, we never really got into that, but EliGE is definitely overfacing in a lot of situations now. And I actually, Maui was the first person I think who brought it up, and I was like, but how can you blame him on complexity? But he was right. Sometimes he gets 1 kill, 2 kill, and then he goes for 3. We remember the FaZe Eternal Fire match on Nuke that went 50 rounds, and everybody, I mean, even people on Reddit, and I just, no offense to anybody, but like even the layman could watch that and be like, yeah, he opened decon and like went wide when he could have just taken a fight safely or just played for time, and that was like clearly the better idea. But EliGE was consistently like walking through a smoke. I felt like he was sort of trying to fake it till he made it, in the sense of, you watch a FaZe match and it's so chaotic, but they keep everything under control and win the round. And EliGE is like, yeah, this is a timing here. I just got to go with how I feel right now. I'm not a complexity right now. Like someone will trade me. This will build momentum off this play. And right now it's not working at all. And now it sort of looks like, or not working at all. Sorry, that's an overstatement. He's still doing a great job, but there are critical moments where, I think if he watched the demo, he'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that again. You could see that it was clearly too much of a commitment in some duels. And so maybe there is, I haven't really noticed Rain on T side to speak to this, but I would guess that there's a reaction to the fact that EliGE is so aggressive. I mean, even 2019 EliGE on Liquid was amazingly aggressive, was more like Nico, I would say, less in the late round, but Banana on Inferno, like double like layered lurks, like EliGE was taking a lot of space by himself, going for kills. That's his peak playstyle. Technically, he's really good at it in general, but I think better in the early round than the late round.
I think there's also an interview that Jean did with him at Cluj where they kind of talked about this weird passive aggressive dynamic that's going on right now. And he said, like EliGE said, that it's a different structure with him on the team instead of Rups because he's a lurker, which means we have more aggressive players. So it's going to take a little bit longer for us to fully adapt compared to other teams. It's just such a big structural change, and we're also playing a little bit outside of our comforts. And this isn't just in EliGE that you can see it. Like Smart Backwards on Twitter did a bunch of graphs that he put out today, and you can actually see that like even broky's T side openings are basically negligible, as well as him trying to do what he calls breakthrough rounds. So it's like 5v5s or 4v4s. So any sort of even odd situation, broky also basically never goes for a kill initially. So there's like a very weird dynamic between who's going for these openers and who isn't now. And it seems like they're trying to actually solve an identity crisis almost.
Kerrigan's biggest test yet. I mean, he's had to integrate so many players. I mean, he had JKS entering Katowice. They won the event. That was like a role he'd never even played before. And suddenly it was like, whoa, why isn't he always doing this? I think Kerrigan built up this reputation of being able to like, you know, bring the best out of anybody. But I would say that with the move where Frozen came onto the team, that's sort of where I started to question like how flexible is he exactly, and how much, you know, control does he have over who's ultimately going to do what, and like how to make, because like again, I think there's something happened there that I don't know if we've totally got to the bottom of. The worst part about this whole situation is broky just misses sometimes, and like he might go through form streaks of just being able to like incredibly clutch, hits all the shots. You know, he still only takes like whatever it is, 15% of the opening attempts, or you know, on average, like very low. That's just who he's always been, but that's been totally viable for FaZe for a long time. It's just that he's definitely just missing now more.
Yeah, and we'll get into broky, but I want to kind of let's look at the EliGE stuff because we have it here, and this is Smart Backwards again, and he's just, you know, he just popped up in Maui Snake's pit and just stole my job basically. He's just better at it. So here we go. So this is clawback bozo, which is what he calls it. And clawback is basically when you're a man down. So it's getting kills in 3v4s, 2v3s. So those kind of clutch players. You can see Frozen broky, amazing, obviously. That's kind of where they want to be. And then over in the top left, we've got what we're talking about with EliGE, with the overthacing that is quite obvious on an eye test. Like it's clear here as well. And I think I noticed it was Stair this tournament as well, that just like he would get one kill and he just thinks he's on a heater. He thinks he's on like a COD kill cam or something and just keeps going. I think EliGE is kind of the same thing where it's like, this is bad. Only SHR, who's like 20 years old and was an AWPer 2 months ago,
and he's getting cut after the tournament anyway.
And he was getting cut, so he's just like, fuck it, if I'm getting a kill, I'm going for more. Like I need to get myself on Reddit to get a team, right? Like EliGE doesn't need to do this. And I think this is something where my gut instinct is that he'll adapt, basically. And I think the next chart I have is kind of the same thing. If you can go for it. It's the same thing. It's that basically EliGE gets loads of kills, even when you just look at gun rounds, even when you adjust, like eco-adjusted KPR, which is on the left here, is basically just you get points for your kill based on how good your gun is and how good the gun is of the guy you kill. It's very simple. So if you kill an AWPer, you get a few more points. And if you kill a rifler and if you kill a pistol, it doesn't matter. And he's very good at that. He's better than Frozen at that. But when you look at round swing, which is like our version of Leafy rating, sort of, it's very early in development. There's some holes in it. Can't be fully certain on it, but this gap is not explainable by the holes in it, right? This is a huge difference in how much Frozen's actions impact a round and how much EliGE's do. Like our model's based at the moment, and it's not finished. It's basically saying that even though EliGE gets basically 0.8 kills per round, like over a game, over an event, he's not even moving the needle that much. He's basically average. And yes, our model's early and it's not perfect, but even if it goes +1, that's not what you expect EliGE to be, right? I think it's just concerning that he's doing this. And it's, can you train that out of someone when he's kind of been so used to complexity? I think Kerrigan can. And I also think this is useful because even if he's doing one and done every round, like that's, with the players FaZe have, that's great. They'll take 4v4s every round, basically. But I just think there's something going on here for sure.
Yeah.
And it's in the numbers and the eye test.
It's interesting too, because I remember watching him at the start of last year, and he wasn't going for these kind of over faces as much. It's something that really started developing towards the latter half of the year when he basically had to fully solo carry complexity even more.
The irony of it, though, is that like they would have won more rounds if he didn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like even on that team, yes, if you like, he would die and then his team would get 2v4'd. So like he needed to stay alive or something. But it wasn't a good habit then either. I think it's like he's just too many skill points are going into like, yeah, like I need to kill streak early round, or the one justification or one thing that I'll say, I think for sure he's obviously very smart. He's obviously played in a winning formula in a very similar style some years ago, but still. So I do believe that he like this can work with some time and whatever. I also think that it's kind of obvious when you watch back any of these games what exactly is the decision that went wrong, where usually you don't, it's not as obvious. Usually it's like, oh, that guy didn't push enough to get into a timing here. So therefore, I always bring up like right now on A site on Ancient, Rops is like very good at making sure he got to the signpost to get like that mow down lineup as everyone's running out of A main. I bring that up all the time in casts. And right now on FaZe, broky will be in donut, and then he's not in the same rhythm and doesn't know how to get to the sign, doesn't know how to punish them as they're coming in. So sometimes donut's getting smoked, CT's getting smoked, Temple's getting mollied, and the bomb's going down 5v5 if they don't get kills through smokes. And I think with EliGE, if he starts out aggressively, I think that might be better than if he started out too passive. Maybe try to pull it back after finding out what works and what doesn't. But usually the problem is like a player like Blame F, it kind of becomes hard to pinpoint on the eye test where they could have had more impact, because you usually have to say he needs to be more aggressive here, and then you have to visualize like where he could have been. Whereas with EliGE, it's very clear what he's doing wrong because he's dying being too aggressive. If he was playing a little bit farther back, obviously it would probably work more. There's probably some spots where you still would want him to be aggressive. So I just think it's at least maybe it's better for him to kick off like, hey, here's a new phase. Our T sides are more aggro. Let's see if we can like get into more positions where I can trade better, and I'll take like slightly less risk over time.
It's also an aggressive game, right? I think EliGE definitely understands that. I think people, like, especially with the way CS2 just works, but even in CSGO, I think Nico and people kind of proved that, you win 75% of 5v4s or something, right? So why not have your best players taking these duels? And I think EliGE is in that mindset, because the best CS2 rifle is like, obviously there's Donk, but then it's like Nico's, Antares. It's not the Ropses anymore, really. They're not taking over games as much as they might have done in CSGO. I think you want your best player to be the aggressive rifler like EliGE is. And I think I completely agree. I think it's a case of demo review, understanding Carrigan's system a bit more. And, you're going to have freedom because you're an aggressive star rifler with years of experience, but it's just that little bit of a leash, I think. And I'm very interested to see them at the next tournament, which is in like 3 months or something, because they skipped Pro League. But, I think they've got a lot of time to work on it. I think I would be surprised if at the next tournament we see the same type of things. If anything, I'm more worried about an overcorrection maybe, but I don't know. We'll see. He still played very well at Cluj, right?
Yeah.
I changed the tab on the wrong tab, but we were talking about broky earlier, and I know that Harry wanted to at least take a look at how he actually has been performing round to round, because when I saw this,
here comes math
seems
guy.
roughly about what I'd expect. Maybe his round swing is a little higher than I expected, but I also feel like when I watch broky play, I see him give away a lot of rounds as well when he's trying to play in the late round, oftentimes than not. But then when I saw the passive versus aggressive chart today, it just didn't seem to add up to what I saw in a lot of the rounds before.
See,
Where was that chart?
It's on the next tab, actually. It's on the next tab.
Okay.
We can talk about it now, because I think there's something going on with broky. I think it's oh, there's a word for it that I'm going to forget, right? But it's a type of bias where basically we remember really, really bad moments a lot.
True.
And I think with someone like Broky, his mistakes are so memorable. Like I can shut my eyes and I can see him running at JL at the major or wherever it was. I can just see that. I can just see him running. It's just like, what are you doing? Or like there's a few on overpass where there's like 5 seconds left and he just starts swinging, and it's like we know you're smarter than this. But I think over a big sample size, I think he's actually better than people think in this exact way. I think he still misses shots, and I think he should be more aggressive and blah blah blah. But I think I'd compare him to like, okay, a hockey goalkeeper, sure, and he's very good at making hard saves. Basically, like if he's your goalkeeper, he makes a lot of saves other people wouldn't make. But what you remember as a fan who goes to watch every week is the 3 times he just chucked it in his own net for no reason. And I think there's something like that going on with Broky, where the brain just sort of like the brain of a fan or the brain of someone who watches games just remembers how the bad moments maybe more than is fair. Because I think, yeah, and I think it's actually a motivation thing. I think if we got playoff Broky all the time,
yes,
like it's much better. It's much better, but it's just too concerning now. You can't be 0.99 impact for 7 months in a row as an AWPer. Like,
I do think it
needs more.
It is kind of the Kermit meme though, of like, you know, oh, he misses shots. No, actually, like there's this, and then, but like the reality is like he does. Like there's this, you know, pull up or whatever the fuck his name is. He's the biggest Broky fan on Twitter. He someone clipped him like co-streaming the game, and it was like, watch, Broky's back now. He has this, and he's standing on stairs in Mirage, and the guy's in connector like right in front of him, and he just quick scopes, and it looks like it's right on him and just misses the shot. And it's like, that actually does happen a little more often. And I think it's because Broky is so impactful that oftentimes the moment that he could get the kill, if he misses it, it's not the same moment that some other player would be in that exact same situation, because he's always in high impact spots. And then like I think for sure it might be overblown how badly he's playing, but it isn't, I think, compared to our expectations, you know, for like prime Broky, I guess comparing Broky to himself, I think it sort of makes more sense than comparing Broky to other AWPers.
Yeah, because he's not like, you know, like on a spreadsheet, he often looks like Shiro or Torzi or someone who's quite passive when they actually have the AWP, right? But everyone knows he's not like that. He's so explosive, and yes, he waits to be a man down before he starts like activating prime, like the actual Broky playstyle we all think of. But it's, I just don't know if it's enough, really. It is my one issue with it is in just in terms of output. And I know AWPers, like, you know, that we've got an AWPing problem. If we go back to the other slide just quickly, we can see, right? Most AWPers are just quite bad at CS2. It's just really hard. There's like 4 good AWPers, really, compared to what we'd actually expect. I think Woxica 2025 has been one of them for me. I think even Munacy's kind of dropped off since the major a little bit. Someone like Device misses a lot more op shots than like, it just doesn't seem to make sense that I'm watching Device sometimes. I think Torzi is good at what he does, but these 2 charts, right, are, so first of all, it's the round swing. It's the same again of just how much your kills move the needle. It's like the top AWPers. Broky's pretty far down, right? And he's had some good moments, and he's still pretty far down. And then the other one is AWP kills versus full buys, and again, it's a similar placing where like these are players that you should be taking Broky over. Like someone like NQC or something, right? Like in a playoff game, it's not a conversation, but over a big enough sample size, he's just not having the output that such an expensive gun really demands, I don't think. And I don't know why it is. I think maybe there's a little bit of the chemistry missing as well that he had with Twists and Robs. Like I think he didn't need to calm basically in those 3v3s. Like none of them did. That was the impression I always got. And I don't know what it is. But it's just,
nobody knows what Broky wants. When has he ever said what he wants? Does he want 10 majors? Does he just want the next one? Like, does he just want like Kerrigan to get as many trophies? Like, he's never ever talked about this. We have no idea what, you know, Broky's goal is. And so like when he plays badly, it's just like he's got the same face on as when he's owning, or he'll just drop the funniest photo of like Navi walking to the trophy lift, and you're like, okay, he's a funny guy, but you get like small windows into his personality, but like you never have an idea of like where his head's at mentally. Every other opera on this list, they would tell you in 10 interviews or their tweets or something. You could know exactly where they stand. How does broky feel about the op in CS2? Has he ever said?
I don't think so.
No,
no one's
I
asking.
mean, no idea.
We know better than to even try and ask him.
Exactly.
I think it's me. I did his top 20 interview. I think it was me a few years ago. It's just like, yeah, this is a waste of everyone's time. I think I'm just gonna just write the article about the answers.
My icebreaker when I met him was a Blast 2020, and I was like, broky like brocky or broky like broccoli, and he went. I was like, oh, this is cooked. I'm done.
It's so different in the comms, right? Like the broky here in the comms.
That's what I was going to point out. Is like the comms are just completely different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I haven't seen as many since they brought EliGE, and I don't know if his voice has changed or not. Maybe you could say, Harry, but whenever I watch the old comms videos, he's so vocal, so you'd think that would be something that would translate, but it's so strange to see that.
Yeah, and it's important to say, like, you know, this isn't wonderful we're talking about. Like, this is someone who's still taking a lot of agency, and he's still making a lot of, I would say, good decisions. It doesn't feel like he's never going to be a system warper. Like we've seen broky for 4 years as a tier 1 warper, right? We know what he is, we know what he isn't. And I think Carrigan's job is to basically integrate EliGE without forgetting that I think maybe broky just needs a little bit more help somewhere in making him a bit more comfortable. Like maybe because the things he can do in 2v3s, there's no reason why he can't do that in a 5v5 or a 4v4. Like, I know you want your AWPer alive late for lots of very valid reasons, but that 75% 5v4 is true whether EliGE gets that kill or broky gets that kill. And broky's got an easier gun for a lot of these picks, I think. And I think he waits. I think he waits because he knows he's so good in late round. And I think he could pump these numbers up. I think even if he still misses like a fair amount of shots, I think we didn't get a spotted accuracy chart, I think, because they're just kind of, they're hard to know really, because, you know, I feel like someone like Device does spam a lot of smokes. Yeah, other AWPers don't, and stuff like that, right? And broky as well. You know, he's no scoping for a wall like 5 times a game. And it's difficult to judge the missing shots thing. Yeah. But I think he should be in the top 5 AWPer, really. The talent he has, I think. But
I would still have mentally. I still have him in the top 5 here. I think I don't have hyped. Woxic's been really good, but I'm not super convinced on his elite status. I think Monacy's slowing down for sure, but I think Zai was the only clear makes sense number 1 on this list, and I think Torzia would have him higher. I would just mentally I would put him in
Shiro as well.
3.
I feel like
Shiro as well. Yeah.
There's no roster change, right? There's no. I mean, this list is 10 plus maps, so there's a few people missing. Right. I'm sure some people have suggested a Sampaias before or something, but I don't think there's significant upside in changing broky. I think everyone on the forums think you just minus broky, add another AWPer. All the other AWPers are worse, honestly. I think it's really, really hard to replace your AWPer in CS2. There's just aren't any, unless you're getting the Wonder Kids are all riflers now because of Donk. So where are we getting your replacement from? But
with fixed CT sides, there's broky wouldn't even be a conversation really, right? He could afford to have a little dip, I think.
This is the thing though. Do you think broky struggles right now are more related to the fact that their CT systems just kind of crumbled with the number of role changes they're trying to recover from?
It does affect when he's coming to help people out. Again on Anubis, when he comes to the A site, now it's Rain. They tried Kerrigan, but when he layers up with Rops, they just had it figured out with how he would stand, where he would stand, how they would watch camera. I think Spirit have the best A site setups when it comes to a split coming in, where they're splitting attention between watching camera, watching A main. But broky and Rops had that ironed out, and I think right now broky doesn't know how to help, and I don't think their anchor, whether it's Rain or Kerrigan, knows where to stand to because you're both out in the open. So I think maybe, I don't know, that's just one map, but it is kind of just all about the maps, because the maps are so different, and some teams are terrible at one map, amazing at others. Anubis has got to be key for FaZe, so it's one that comes up in their vetoes. And then the A site I think is a big problem. So I think when he comes in to help A site, as a very specific example, both players end up dying because I don't think they know how to play it together.
So is it a time thing? Do you think they're gonna? What even is the next event? It's like Lisbon, right? So it's a month. They've got a month off basically for EliGE to sort out Europe and everything, and come back. Like, what are you looking for next time they play? Basically,
Frozen on every small site. No, I think did the one thing I was not sure about. I know EliGE took outside from Rain. Is Frozen playing A side on Ancient now?
Yeah, they swapped that as well.
Yeah, okay, so that's good.
These are my predictions. These aren't. This is old actually. I think it's actually not that relevant. But yeah, Frozen's playing A now. They started with EliGE A. EliGE was even like A lurking. If you looked at it really strictly on like a very passive default, EliGE was the A lurker. But they've swapped that now. I think the Cluj setups I think are close to the final ones because they just make a lot more sense. Like you would obviously swap Frozen and EliGE on both sides of Ancient, and that's been their best map. I think it was, and I think that kind of makes sense to me at least because I think EliGE is still really comfortable. Frozen's job is not that different from his old job, and then also there's like the Rain and Carrigan. Even if Rain and Carrigan are swapped on B Ancient, I think that's just something that basically every team's done it now. I think it's something about. And I think this is the worry for Carrigan when he was anchoring some of these sites. I think most teams are scared of having their in-game leader in like one tappable anchor spots that just anchor out. And Cave just isn't that. Like
the weird
as much
part
as Rain
is like
invented the wallbangs, Carrigan can still do them, right? But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, kind of. He did like there was one round where like Rain like ended up in Cave and then just like instantly multi-killed like after he took over like in the game. It's just like like back to it. But like I think I'd still be worried. So I'd be worried about their Inferno. I think like, lack of Rops and Pit, watching Rain and Pit so far has been like, okay. I'd be worried about, I like Ancient now that besides the Kerrigan Rain switch, I would just change it back. I don't know. Because it was working before. I mean, their Ancient was amazing. Like,
But Cave's where you put people with no hands. That's why Astralis puts down there.
Yeah, but actually like, that was kind of a thing, like, Inter's played Cave, and it was like, why is it Inter's playing Cave? He's not good enough. Like, there are opportunities to frag. Brolin played Cave. He was super impactful in that spot. I think it's not that. You don't put that much of a bot there. I think Anubis I'm worried about because Frozen's actually really good at B. So like I almost am like, well, if they bring him over to A, like A now B is like the site that everyone like Madger's going to hit your site like 12 times and a half. You better have someone good there. So he's really good there. So I'm worried about Anubis because I'm not sure how the CT sides pan out. I don't think you can replace Rops on A, just like no team really can. Vitality benefit. And then I think Inferno, I'm a little bit worried about their CT sides. And then
So is Frozen good enough on B that you wouldn't move him to Pit? Or is that something where, like, because Rain used to play B for ages with Carrigan, right? Like that seems easy to do.
I mean, even Donk's complaining about Anubis right now. He's like, this is the worst map ever. And he plays B, right? I think that there's something there where, I don't know if people's execs are getting better or if the nades are making the B players more uncomfortable or it's just requires too much swinging to like guarantee fights or something like that. But players aren't really happy about it, but I think Frozen's super good at it, so that might be valuable. I don't know what the stats are in terms of how many more times people hit B than A on Anubis.
I also don't know, but I know there's no good spots on CT side. Like it's like they're all about B Mirage level rating basically. I think mid slightly higher just because you are going to be the second in to a site hill or whatever. But yeah, like even like Donk plays Con. And of course, Donk hates Anubis because Con is a horrible spot compared to the other 6 he's got. Like it's actually just an anchor spot, really. Like I think when you watch a G2 player, it feels like Hunter's the rotator and the Con player is the anchor a lot of the time. And I guess Frozen does that too. With I guess it's raining Con now. I guess you can have similar dynamics. Like I think it's interesting when teams play positions very differently to other teams, and it's like this kind of messes with my spreadsheets and roles and stuff, but also it's interesting, right? It's because like is Bianca on Anubis a good spot or a bad spot? Because Frozen makes it look like a really good spot by being able to be mobile and popping up at mid sometimes or whatever, right?
I think the big difference is whether the player is mobile though, because not every player who's a Bianca is going to be as mobile as Frozen is.
Yeah, like Magix isn't, for example.
Yeah.
But like over on mid, like EliGE, this is a good map for EliGE. I think getting mid on both sides, like that's nice. Because he's kind of got that Nico effect of like, I can play mid by myself and get a kill and like take mid control, and I can get more aggressive every round, and like you don't have to worry about me. So I think that's so like you don't get any. It's just so strange for FaZe. Now there's like certain parts of maps that are getting better, certain parts of maps that are getting worse.
I think going back to your original question, Harry, is whether it's just a time thing. I mean, yes, but also I just feel like it's only a time thing because they're trying to force this role change rather than just make Frozen play Rops' old roles. Because it feels like they would just have a much easier way to fit in the entire team if they actually followed that.
Yeah.
So yes, like it is a time
Maybe
thing.
we can vote on it.
I feel like it just could not be a time thing. Like if they'd actually made that change, it would take less time to adapt, and they would have just a better fit from the get-go.
If you could push a button, would you do it?
Do what?
Put Frozen in all the small sites, and then you'd have to take responsibility for this for the next 3 years. Would you push that button? Yes,
I would push that button.
But there's room to be flexible. Like, I think Big Azores
Yeah.
talks about it.
Not
Like,
every single site.
as much as it's useful for me when I want to decide anchor of the year, like you don't need to do that. You can mix it up. Like you can have no anchor of the year nominees. That's fine. Like on Mirage or something, right? Like you wouldn't swap Rain and Frozen on Mirage just because Frozen's our anchor now. Like that works fine.
Yes.
It's worked fine for years. But I think literally all the other maps, I think I would do it if that was done. I think I'd do it instantly. Like Frozen in Pit, yeah. I'm not going to map swap as much as I currently would. Like it's just.
The other thing is like you can say that Rain is a soldier as much as you want, but there's also like the way he plays also lends to like certain positions and styles, and yes, you can adapt that a certain amount. Oh, I think the froze suck. He is just a little bit more of an aggressive player who like likes taking those duels. So it just seems unnatural to like stick him in Pit. It's just not gonna get the best out of his abilities.
We're seeing why Hunter isn't anchoring on G2 right now. Basically, I think it's the same thing.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't look right.
Well, I think we covered pretty well across all of the players and the changes that FaZe have made. Usually we have some HLTV threads to pull from that suggest some incredible changes that teams could make. However, I actually couldn't find any. I tried for a bit, and so far HLTV is not really suggesting any FaZe changes. Is that just because it's too early, or you know what, Launders, if you had to make a change right now to FaZe, what would it be?
Like a roster move?
Yeah, so you're creating your own HLTV.
Welcome, Modesty.
FaZe Fans Come Here. It's got to be a little realistic, though.
Modesty
as all HLTV forum threads are.
I honestly, FaZe are one team where I have never been like, oh, like this is an obvious move. It's like the least obvious move team that I've ever talked about, I would say. I would probably, let's go for Rops. I mean, the Rops twist version of FaZe is the best version of FaZe. It was the best in the late round. It was the best to watch. It was 2 years ago, so they were more motivated. They were all like closer to 30 or under 30. Like it was, let's roll it back. I think like Frozen coming in was a little strange. He's actually playing his best CS ever now. I think Frozen's gonna have his best year on record as long as FaZe have some deep playoffs and stuff. Because his impact right now is incredible.
The face Harry just made is, I can see it in his face. It's the
What?
Frozen started as a top 5 player last year too.
Oh, I actually wasn't thinking about that. But yeah, that did happen,
you made a face when he said it. I remember you telling me that.
It's my subconscious.
Wait, what was it? What was it? Sorry, my dog started barking.
Frozen started 2024 as like a top 5 player. Like the first 3 or 4 events of the year he was playing in like top 5 contention.
Yeah,
and then fell down.
Yeah, he did fall down. I was not super happy with Frozen by the end of the year. I think I definitely had him a lot lower.
You're not happy with him now. You just suggested bringing back Twist and Rops. Get him out.
Yeah, that's true. That's so
just for role reasons.
Actually.
Do the Ash. Do what Ash said about Volt. It's like, oh, I love Volt so much. It's just for
dude.
I
love Volt so much too. I was very disappointed when they removed him, and I watched that episode. But he wasn't able to talk. You guys were asking him to talk about his former teammates, and he couldn't do it. Like, he couldn't talk about snacks. Honestly, he couldn't talk about. You know what I mean? So,
Do you think that's honest? Yeah, I'm trying to think of a hot take FaZe move. Honestly, you just don't want to call for Rain's head again because he's probably going to be major MVP of Austin.
I told myself after that I would never call the end of FaZe. I said I would never say this is the end of FaZe because it's been 5 years now, and they're still extremely relevant.
I feel like the VP of CS2, right? They're like the. Yeah, he was the team I never thought would break up, which is just kind of sad that they have. Really, I mean, it's a different podcast, but it is sad that Rob's twisted broky.
What if you brought?
They kept the form going.
What if you brought Bit in?
What if it was Nico for Rain? You know, like how does that go wrong?
Sure. Wasn't that?
Is that somewhat realistic? What are the parameters for this? Realistic?
That's true. If we had to be realistic, it has to be a team below FaZe in the rankings. So
okay.
It can't
Falcons.
be. Okay. Actually, you got me.
Yeah, Tess's.
Understandable.
Tess's. That's actually
that's a sleeper great move.
Loki, like just get a real anchor in, like even like a nap.
Okay, yeah. Tell me how you really feel.
Magisk. Well, no, but you know, like just
could
someone who's
Nerds,
comfortable.
Could Nerds fit into this team?
Yeah,
he would, right?
Nerds could fit into any team. This is always the problem with Rifle is as good as Nerds. Like, yeah, take him every time, every single time. But Frozen's definitely anchoring in that team. I'll tell you that for free. If it's Frozen, Nerds, EliGE.
I think we got some kind of decent answers. The best we can do without the help of the HLTV forums.
Caserado will jump spot B on this roster.
He already jump spots B.
Yeah.
What a waste, honestly. Anyway, I just want to say, Launders, thank you for coming on, for talking about FaZe with us, for not ripping into Harry too much for his MVP decisions.
Mine and Peter's MVP decisions.
Yes, of course.
And Striker normally.
We're all entitled to our opinions. That's the beauty of it. No one has to get mad at each other.
Yeah, I'm just entitled to. I've done it. It's personal growth. I've turned off Twitter DMs. I've turned off Twitter notifications. I've turned off HLTV notifications. You can't hurt me anymore. Okay.
Oh, I'm sad to know that it's getting to you, man. I mean, just remember, it's never personal. It's never personal.
I really enjoyed getting on for work the other day, opening up HLTV and seeing a forum thread. Nero CS come here. And I was like, oh, this could be anything. Ends up it was actually some like developer thing. Like they wanted some change on the website that only devs would be able to do. So Harry's the future HLTV dev too.
It's normally to do as IO, but you know,
yes,
wasn't at this event. I had a week off. Great news.
But yeah, Launders, anything you wanted to leave off with? Any parting words you wanted to say before we end the show?
FaZe up, baby.
I
just learned how to do that like last month.
That is a C in there, by the way.